Hey guys, so in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you all about my breast augmentation and breast lift experience. So I think it's been a total of 8 weeks since I had it done. And I told you guys that I would share my experience with you, film a video, and go over kind of everything that I went through. I wasn't planning on even sharing very much about it, but there was so much curiosity, which is actually a little bit relieving because I wasn't expecting curiosity, like good curiosity. So thank you guys for understanding. So I think the main question, the biggest question that people had from my YouTube video where I actually talked about it was, why did you do it? So there was some people saying, because I got a lift and I got an augmentation, some people were saying, you're so young, you don't need a lift. And you already had large boobs, why did you get an augmentation? So I'm gonna answer those questions. The lifts, I don't really think age definitely can have something to do with it, but it's not the only factor. Back in, I don't know how many years ago it was, probably 4-ish years ago, my boobs were a lot bigger. They were like a 36D, double D, in that range. They kind of fluctuated back and forth in that size. And then I just had so many weight fluctuations over the years, like up and down. I always had a pretty poor diet for most of the time. So I was always a little bit, like I was around 20 pounds heavier than I am now. But when I would get really stressed out, I would lose weight. Like when I'm really stressed, I don't eat a lot. I don't do it intentionally. It's just some people eat more when they get stressed. I lose weight when I get stressed. John's raising his hand right now. I lose weight when I get stressed. Anyway, I went through a lot of weight fluctuations. And over that time, it was like the first thing to come and go would always be my boobs. Every single time, it's like they get really like large and engorged, and then they shrink and they kind of like deflate. So over the years, it was just kind of like up and down, and they were getting lower and lower and lower. And it wasn't until I started training back in, I want to say it was last August, where I just started getting a lot stronger and I was doing a lot of workouts. And once I did that, I was losing a lot of body fat. And with that, it was like my boobs were just done. They threw up their white flag and they said, I'm done. Then like back in January, where it was like really, really starting to bother me. And so that's when I really started getting serious about looking into it. And then like for the augmentation part, people saying you already had big boobs, why are you getting augmentation? I didn't get an augmentation to get larger breasts, even though they changed shape a lot. The biggest thing was the shape. While they did shrink down, I was like a 34C by the time I actually got my surgery. So I went from like a 36 double D to a 34C. They were still like there, but I didn't do it to get larger breasts. I did it to get fullness up in here. And I'll explain more in my consultation why I did that. That's really what's going to answer those two questions. So like, why did you get the lift? Why did you get the augmentation? And I really like, when did I know that I was going to do it? I really, really was considering it. I remember it was 3 years ago before the wedding, our wedding, mine and Johnny's wedding, that I lost a lot of stress weight a few months before, and I had bought my wedding dress, and then my wedding dress didn't fit me a few months later, and it was just like a huge change. And that weight fluctuation was when I was really like, whoa, this is really bothering me. It was really just frustrating. Like when your body changes that much and you're not really expecting it. It was just something that I was really starting to think about. It was on my mind. I knew at that point, like one day I was gonna do it. I didn't know when. I didn't know what exactly I was going to do. It was just like, oh my gosh, I would love to just not deal with this. And then it wasn't until after training and seeing my body fat percentage like really go down that I was really like set, okay, I am doing this. Like it is bothering me so much. I mean, honestly, for the most part, I've gotten so much positive feedback and just people asking questions and being curious and wondering why and like wanting to know certain things, which is totally fine. Like I'm actually a lot more comfortable talking about it than I thought I would be. But some people are like, I'm so disappointed that you did this. Like it really just shows me like how insecure you are and how low your self-esteem is. You know, I mean, I know what they're saying, but like I've said, like I'm not confident about my boobs. Like I've been so open about it before. I was insecure about it. Obviously, I got my breasts done because I was insecure about them. But I was always wearing like turtlenecks and high neck things. Like I think if you look at how I've dressed for like a long period of time, like I'm usually wearing t-shirts and stuff, I was always pretty covered up. And part of it was because I was uncomfortable with my chest, and the other part was just because that's just my style. And since I've gotten them done, I've definitely showed them off more than I probably have in my entire life. Is that a permanent thing? I don't know. It's been exciting for me to be able to wear different things that I've ever been able to wear before. John's over there like. So now I'm going to talk to you guys about the process and how I found my surgeon. When I sat down and was like, I felt physically ready. John and I had discussed it, and I'll talk to you guys more about that in a little bit because he was not about it at first. So I'll talk to you guys about that in a second. But once I was like, I am ready to do this. If I was going to do this tomorrow, like I could do it. I'm ready. Totally mentally, physically, everything. I was ready to go. So I sat down and I was like, okay, where am I supposed to start? Like, can you imagine if you just Googled it, how many, it would just be like all ads for like the first 30 pages probably. So I actually started on Yelp. Now, I am a huge Yelper. I don't write reviews, but I rely so heavily on reading people's reviews. It's just kind of like what I do. So I started on Yelp, just poking around like in Beverly Hills and LA and the South Bay, all these areas around me. And I found this doctor. So he didn't have a ton of reviews, but the reviews that he did have were really great. And I liked the feedback. Like everybody was saying he's very realistic with you. He sits down with you for as long as you want to talk. My consultation, I think, was like an hour and a half long. He's very realistic with you on expectations, which I really appreciated. Anyway, so those were like qualities that I was looking for. So I went to his website after reading the reviews, and I just really liked all the before and after pictures. Everything looked super natural to me. That was something that was really important. Like I didn't want, obviously you don't want really unnatural, but I just really liked his before and after. Like the biggest thing for me was shape. And it seems like every single person that I saw on the before and after page, like the shape was always just really nice. Like everything that I was looking for. And a lot of other places that I looked at, the shape just wasn't, like I wouldn't have been happy if that was the shape that I got. I wanted like the teardrop, you know? I didn't want like a high profile or like anything like that. I just wanted like doot. So I decided to call and make an appointment for a consultation. And it was a month out. I had to wait a month after I decided I was ready before I went to the consultation. And I was like, okay, so I have one consultation. I should make a few more in case this guy doesn't work out. I didn't even find another doctor that I really liked after doing all this research. So I just decided to like go with this one and really hope that it was gonna meet my expectations, which it did. Luckily, when I went in, I just really liked the vibe. I just, you know? So we sat down and he's like, okay, tell me, blah, blah, blah. And I told him, I was like, you know, I really just want me, but better. Like a lot better. He looked over it and he kind of checked me out and he was like, all right, we definitely want to do a lift. And then because of like the pictures that I showed him, I went in there with inspo pics, a little mood board, if you will. And he said to get those results, to get something similar or to get the results that you really want, we're going to have to do an augmentation too, which I was kind of expecting. I wasn't really surprised just because it was so flat up top. It wasn't really surprising to me. So he told me that and he told me like what he thinks. He asked me, he was like, what size do you want to be? And I told him, I was like, I just want to be a full C. Right now, I'm kind of like a soft deflated C. I just want to be a full C. I just wanted him like proportionate to my frame because he asked me first what I wanted. And then he told me he was going to tell me what he thought after. And he said the same thing. He was like, I totally agree with you. And so I was like, all right. He wasn't like trying to pressure me to do anything else. And then we talked about like the actual procedure after we talked about like size and shape, which by the way, he said, let me guess, you wanted boob this shape. And he drew the teardrop. And I was like, yes. He talked to me about what my incisions would look like. So it's actually, I think, technically the most invasive of all the scars that you could have. So it is around the nip, down, and then, which is an anchor, is what they call it. And at the time, like, scarring wasn't even, people are always saying, like, oh my God, how bad are the scars? It didn't, like, scarring didn't faze me at all. Having scars would be so much better. I would feel so much comfortable with just a few scars than where I was before. I did not care about scars at all at the time. Like, it was barely on my mind. It's technically the most invasive. It's the most scarring. Now, listen, I don't know everything, okay? You would have to talk to a surgeon to actually get like the real info. I'm trying to go off what I remember him saying. He just did the lollipop. He's noticed that like over time they get heavier. Whereas if you have the little anchor thing underneath, it helps to lift evenly. Now, like I said, I'm not a surgeon. Okay, obviously
Google this stuff.
Google, use any source but me. I know there's a lot of questions around like what type of incision and all of that. The armpit, belly button, like that wasn't even.
Why?
Because I needed the lift. Oh. So when you have the lift is a lot more invasive than if you just do implants. And I like 1000% needed to get a lift. All right, and then there's also a lot of questions on cost. How much does it cost? I know if you do, or if you're just doing a reduction, like you have really, really large breasts and you want a reduction, Typically that's covered by insurance, but for the most part, the rest of it is not at all because it's elective. So for the cost, I mean, it really depends on where you go, who your doctor is, where you live, and then what exactly you're getting done. If you guys didn't know, because I didn't know this before I started doing research, is the lift is like the really expensive part. That is the meat, if you will, of the meat and potatoes of the situation. The implants, if you're just doing an augmentation, it's a lot less expensive. But if you're doing the lift and an augmentation, the lift is the most expensive part. It's like two different prices. If you do lift and implants, it's basically like, it's like buying a used car. All right, so consultation, everything was great. I felt really good about it. I was like, let's do this. I said, sign me up. All right, so now the day of the surgery. Typically you'll go to like a surgery center or something like that. It's very like low key. John drove me. You want to have somebody drive you there, take you home. But that morning, like everybody's like, oh my God, were you so nervous? Was I nervous? I don't think I was nervous.
A little bit, yeah.
I was a little bit nervous. I felt like I was more excited than I was like worried or nervous. I was so confident in like the process of the actual operation that I wasn't worried at all about that stuff. He spends a lot of time in the operating room. So I ended up being in there for like 5 or 6 hours. And I remember waking up and I was in a lot of pain and I just started like quiet tears, you know? Like I was just like, it hurts. And I just remember saying like, it hurts. And they gave me like 2 doses of pain medication. After that, it wasn't hurt anymore. And then John drove me home, and I remember John chose the bumpiest road in all of Los Angeles to drive home on. All I ate that night was saltines, right? Mm-hmm. And soup, California Chicken Cafe, vegetable soup, bomb, and saltines, and that's pretty much all I did. I wasn't nauseous, thank God. Oh my God. I can't even imagine how horrible that would be if you're throwing up after your surgery. That night, I remember I wasn't in a ton of pain, probably because I was so heavily medicated, but I didn't really feel that much pain. I remember I was actually swatching on Snapchat. Do you remember? I was like swatching new products on Snapchat that night. So that was like day 1. Everything was totally fine. I fell asleep sitting up. I got one of those little like pillows, which was a great investment. One of those pillows with like the, you know, the little backrest and the little arm thingies. That really helped to keep me like propped up all night. And then the next day and for the rest of that week, I was medicated. I was on pain medication, so I didn't really feel a ton of pain that week. It was more discomfort, I would say, than anything. So like when I would wake up in the morning, my butt hurt the most, like my lower back and butt from sleeping sitting up. I definitely had discomfort and it was very awkward like in my chest, but it wasn't like unbearable. Like nothing was really unbearable that week. I couldn't sleep in my bed because when I sat up, it was too firm on my butt. So I actually moved to my couch, which was great. My couch is super comfortable. So I slept out there for the first week. I would wake up and then I would kind of nap throughout the day and felt like everything was fine. I definitely like the first couple days, I needed a lot of help. I needed help going to the bathroom. But after that, I was on my own. I couldn't lay all the way down on my back like you're not supposed to, but I couldn't. It was just like so hard to get back up. And then obviously anything reaching up, I just kind of like I was doing one of these, like I was just kind of curled in. Week 2 was probably the worst. I want to say week 2 was like the worst part of the entire experience for me. That was when I wasn't taking anything anymore, so I was no longer like on pain meds. It wasn't like pain, it was just I was so tired. Like I could not stop sleeping. I was sleeping like all day long. So I was sleeping a lot and then I was starting to feel a lot more discomfort. I was starting to feel a lot of tightness, a lot of heaviness. And then also like right below, you know the feeling when you're really, really sore in your abs and it just feels like kind of ripped? You don't know that feeling? So it was just, it felt like mentally it felt like there was a lot of cuts in the ab area. I think that was probably from the lift because he did say with the lift there's a lot more cutting that's going on. There was a lot of discomfort down there and it was like if I was talking a lot, I would just like be out of breath a lot more often. Like it was, I would just say like the breathing was kind of difficult. I was just really exhausted. I just felt like mentally exhausted. I just felt drained and it was kind of frustrating. Because I wanted to just be back to normal. I thought I was going to be ready to go. And I've heard from a lot of people, like, after 3 days, I was back at work, doing this, that, and that. And I was like, cool. Because that wasn't me. I took a week full recovery. Like, I didn't do anything for a full week. And then after that, I really took it slow. I did go out, which I regret doing. It was like a week and a half after my surgery. I went out one night, I thought I was like good to go, and then the next day I just felt like destroyed. I was like, why did I do that to myself? I regret doing that. I think I pushed myself a little bit too much, but everybody has different recovery times, everybody has different recoveries, and I just felt like I didn't want to overexert myself. I wanted to give myself the time to heal and recover and do everything that the doctor told me to do. I remember week 2, I tried to drive, and I drive a Jeep Wrangler, and I went to go leave the house because I was going to go pick up food because Johnny was out of town. And driving a Wrangler is kind of like driving a tractor. Like everything is really, really stiff, like the steering and the gear shift and just getting in and out of the car, the door, you have to like slam it really hard. That was such a bad idea. It was so like when I went to go change gears, I had to use both arms and like use like my core to actually do it. Stupid idea. You're not supposed to drive after like or for the first week because you're supposed to be able to like react quickly, you know, and I felt very uncomfortable driving after week 1. I ended up waiting like 2 full weeks. So I went back and it was like I was crawling out of my skin terrified. I was like, oh my God, what if it's not what I wanted? What if they're too big? What if they don't look any different whatsoever? Like I just had no idea what they were about to look like. We got in there and he took the bandages off and then he laid me down and he took out all the sutures. And then he was like, okay, go look in the mirror. And I was just like, what? There were so many people in the room. It was like really weird. It was the doctor, it was John, and it was my mom. We were all in the room and everybody's just staring at me and he's like, okay, go look in the mirror. And I was like, okay, let me just go over there and check myself out. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, okay. And then I just like walked back over to him. It was weird seeing your body look so different, and they were like really swollen that day. So it was kind of terrifying. When I saw them though, I was like, oh my God, they're huge. They're massive. But anyway, so after that, like my care was to tape them, like tape all the incisions and leave that on for 4 days, take off the tape and put Aquifer on all the incisions for a day until 4 weeks later when I go back in for my 6 weeks appointment or 6 week follow-up appointment. My sensitivity on my nips for the first 2 weeks was
Legit.
so unreal. Like I'm telling you, if somebody walked too close to me, I was like, ah. He just said like it's totally normal and don't worry about it, it's gonna go away with time, which it definitely has. So then after when I got into my 6 weeks appointment, he was like, you look great, you can ditch the bra, the bra thing that you wear because they make you wear like a compression bra. I was so annoyed with that thing, I was so excited to get rid of it. So this is what my doctor recommended to me, the biocorneum. He really recommended it. He said anything with silicone in it is really great for scars. So I've been using this. Can't really talk too much about my scarring yet just because it's still pretty fresh. But the incisions around the nipple and down the center are practically invisible. The main ones that I'm really worried about are on the bottom, and it's really not even both sides. It's just the left side that I'm kind of worried about. It's a little bit more red. So I'm still using this. I'm also using like Aquifer in case I notice any like dryness. I'm putting that on there. So I'll keep you guys posted on if I feel like it's working or not, but that's what he recommended to me to use. So that's what I've been using. What did I actually get? So I got the lift, the augmentation, and the implants that I got. A lot of you guys were asking how many cc's. The right side is 300. The left side is 325. All right, and now we're gonna fast forward to now, which is about 2 months after surgery, and I feel fantastic. Like I just feel so much better every single day getting dressed. Before it was a little frustrating, like especially if I was going shopping or getting swimsuits, anything like that. It was always a very frustrating experience for me, and now I just feel like so much more confident. Even if I'm not, like if I'm just wearing a t-shirt, I still feel more confident. It was something I did for myself, not for other people to see in clothing. It wasn't about that. It really was about something that made me feel more comfortable. The results have been like amazing. So before, when I would have a lift up bra, you know, you have to tighten the straps all the way just to like get them up to a normal place. They just are that way without a bra on now, which is really like, honestly, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, it's about to go away. Like I feel like it's gonna wear off soon or something. And then I also have like the fullness up at the top, which I didn't have before. It's just like such a huge difference, and it just feels really, really nice. I'm very impressed with the results. Would I do it again? 1000%. Yes, I would do it again. So now I'm gonna go through questions that you guys have asked me on Twitter. Taylor said, were you a little nervous or embarrassed to expose yourself in front of the doctors or nurses beforehand, or were you comfortable throughout it? I was a little bit nervous. I brought a few friends with me, and then there was like a girl in the room, and then there was a doctor in the room. It was a little bit weird, but I was more nervous just about the process rather than that. I felt like I was in the room with like professionals and some of my closest friends. So I was just nervous about the process and the experience rather than like taking my shirt off in front of people. Emily said, how would you describe the healing? I hear the pain is like an intense workout sore. Hashtag itty bitty titty committee. The pain, it's, you know, it's funny because when you're in it, you feel like you can describe, like I felt like I could describe it better then than I can now, because reflecting on it now, it doesn't seem that painful to me. It was definitely a lot more discomfort, but it was never excruciating pain. Like post-surgery, there were some times where I'm like, oh shit, it hurts right now. But it was never like a constant, like days on end or a few days in a row kind of pain. It was more like zings here and there where it felt a little bit more painful. I do know people that have gotten augmentations or surgeries, like breast surgeries before, and they told me it was the most painful experience. Like they couldn't believe how much pain they were in. They were like screaming, like in agonizing pain. And I think some people that do it, that when they get augmentations, they go a lot bigger and that stretches out the skin a lot more, and it's a lot different on the body than, like for me, I already had, the skin was already totally stretched out. So that part like didn't hurt me. And the larger you go, if you get it under the muscle, which is what I did, it stretches out the muscle. You know, if you get like 400 or 500 cc's, it's stretching out the muscle a lot more than if you do something smaller. So I think that had a lot to do with why I wasn't in as much pain as some of the people that I've talked to. There's so many different factors involved, like your pain tolerance, all that kind of stuff. But I felt like my pain was a lot less intense than what I was anticipating. John thought I was going to be a nightmare. Didn't you think I was going to be a nightmare after?
Mm-hmm.
You thought, but you actually liked me.
You were sweet.
I was sweet. Did I have back pain before my surgery? No, I did not. Brianna said, what's it like seeing yourself one way for so long and suddenly have it change? So that was like what I was saying when I went to get my bandages off. I was like terrified to just see my body change so quickly. It was definitely weird. It's still weird. Like when I get in the shower and I see myself, I'm like, is that really me right now? It's a big change, but for me, it was like a really good change. So it's definitely something that I'm having like a positive adaptation to. Amara said, what were your expectations of the breast lift versus the reality? Some people said like the lift is gonna be more pain. There was a lot of questions like, does the augmentation hurt more? Does the lift hurt more? If you do them both, is it gonna hurt like double time? My doctor told me, he was like, it's essentially the same thing, like recovery wise, as far as like pain levels. I can't really compare because I've never just had an augmentation. My expectation was to just have them like lifted. I really thought it was going to be completely different, and the reality is they are completely different. Like they're so much higher. I want to say it's like they're almost 3 inches higher than where they were before. Actually, like in my before and after picture, which I'm not going to be showing, my freckle is actually like a benchmark. So I have like a freckle like a little bit below, like on my sternum, and it's like it went from here to like up here. So it was actually exceeded my expectations, just because I didn't even know it was possible to make that big of a change, but it did, which is fantastic. Kayla said, do you wish you went bigger? People always seem to regret the size and wish they went bigger. Hashtag boob talk. No, I definitely, like, I am so happy with the size. I definitely don't wish I went any bigger. Jackie said, what were your first thoughts waking up from surgery? The fuck? Haley said, what was the pain like on a scale of 1 to 10? It definitely varied. Like right when I got out of surgery, it was so uncomfortable. I would say it was definitely at like an 8. It was a different pain. Like I've had surgery before, like when I got my appendix ruptured and like I had to go get emergency surgery that night. That surgery was so much more painful than this one. I remember waking up from that one. I was in the hospital for a couple days, and I just remember it was so long ago, but I still remember being in excruciating pain from that long ago. That pain was like on a 10 for me. This one, it was more of like, I'm in so much discomfort right now that it's painful, but it wasn't like as excruciating. Like there was never excruciating pain for me in this situation. It was a lot of discomfort. Jay said, what were your biggest concerns, hangups, or reservations going into it, and how did you deal with them? Biggest concern was Jonye. I forgot to talk about that. Oh, I think other people asked that too. How did John feel about it? Because obviously John and I are married, It was a decision we had to make together. So obviously I wanted John to be like really comfortable with the decision because it is a big deal. It's like it's a surgery you're going under. It's like definitely like a life decision. I kind of started like inching him into it. Like I would bring it up here and there and he would just be like, kind of blow me off. Like I would just like throw it out there like, oh yeah, when I get my boobs done. He didn't really take me seriously at first, and then it wasn't until like a few weeks before I booked my consultation, like I was like, dude, this is really bothering me. Like you don't understand. Because I mean, they don't understand, right? Like they don't have boobs. Like it's like telling a guy if your situation started sagging down to your knees, you would probably want to handle it, right? If you're swinging back and forth and it was definitely more public than in your pants, you'd probably want to do something about it. So he was not on board at first. Like he just didn't, I think he didn't understand. Like it took a lot of explaining. Because like when you first tell people, like if you say I want to get my boobs done, the first thought into people's head is I want really big boobs. There's nothing wrong with that. Like a lot of people have smaller chests and they want to get like a C cup or a B cup, D cup, whatever it is. A lot of people want to get augmentations to get bigger boobs, right? That's like the first thing people think of. That's like the only thing people think of that I came across a lot of times when I was sharing what I wanted to do with my friends and family. He also thought it was a gateway. Like if I did that, then I'm gonna go do everything else. So I never did anything cosmetic before. I've never done anything to my face or body or anything. So it took several conversations before he really understood and was like, okay, I support you. So Rachel said, what size was your implant? Did you get saline or silicone? Whichever one you chose, why did you choose it? I did the 325 cc's and I got silicone because, I mean, that's when I did the research, that's what I felt would be the best for me. It was the most natural feeling. Saline, I know, is technically safer, I think, in case it does rupture. It just disappears into your body. Whereas silicone, you don't really know it, and then it kind of can leak out. The doctor was telling me, like, the implants now are so strong. Like, it's so rare that they actually do rupture. So that made me feel better about it. And the fact that they feel more natural. They look more natural than saline ones. And I did the moderate profile. There is the high profile where it, like, on the side, it kind of goes up more. But I wanted, like, on my shape. So if you want, like this kind of shape, like a little bit more round on the top, then you would go higher profile. Glammed It said, how long to get yourself back to your full strength and normal movements without pain? I would say week 4, like a month after my surgery, I was like feeling pretty normal. I was still a little bit uncomfortable. Like I wasn't supposed to lift over 5 pounds for 6 weeks, but you know, Zoe weighs 10 pounds. I definitely started catching myself lifting more than I should have around a month after surgery just because I kind of like forgot. Like you don't realize how many things are like heavier than 5 pounds when you're just doing stuff around the house. I was definitely like hunched over a lot like this for the first few weeks, but I feel like my mobility is really good now. I'm back to working out 3 times a week. I don't have any pain. I'm not doing any like direct chest workouts, but I'm doing the entire rest of my body. So he told me just probably for like another few months, you don't want to do like push-ups or any like chest focused workouts. I feel like I'm pretty much like 90% back to normal right now, and it's been 2 months since my surgery. All right, so that wraps up all the questions, and I hope I described everything or explained everything in enough detail for you guys. Thank you guys for being so understanding and so supportive of my decision. I was a little apprehensive to like share my story and my experience. I was a little bit nervous about it, but I feel so good after talking to you guys about it, and you guys are just so curious, and it's so funny because it's not what I was expecting, but I really appreciate it, so thank you. If you guys have any questions, you can always leave them in the comments down below. I will try my best to answer them. Other than that, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching.